Alright, we've got another sequence here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just look at the sequence and try to figure out what type of sequence I'm looking at. Is it arithmetic? Is it geometric? And you may know, and if you know, you can skip forward just a little bit, but I'm going to look at what's happening from 1 to 1/3. Okay, so if I had 1 and I subtracted 2/3, for example, then I would get to 1/3. And then if I subtracted 2/3 again, I would get to negative 1/3, not 1/9. Okay, so you could always just kind of start off and say maybe it's arithmetic, and just give it a test and see if it is. In this case, we can see that it's not. So the next thing I'm going to try to do is check and see if it's geometric. Is there a constant multiplier between each term? And that's known as the common ratio. So let's say that I didn't know what it was. A way I could figure that out is to say A1, term 1, times some ratio equals A2. So let's solve for that ratio. Divide by A sub 1. And you find out that the ratio is just term 2 divided by term 1. Okay? So what do I multiply by term 1 to get to term 2? That's the ratio. So 1/3 divided by 1 is just 1/3. That is the ratio. Times 1/3, times 1/3, times 1/3. Okay? You can check it for each term and see that that's what the ratio is. Right? If that's the ratio, then what would the next 3 terms be? Okay? This is kind of a recursive way of looking at it, that we're going to always just look at this term, the last term listed, and we're going to multiply by 1/3 to get to the next term. So in this case, I'll just use this little bar as a fraction. We'll get us to 1 out of 81, 1/81st. And no, I'm good with that. Then we go to 1 243rds, and 1 729th. So you can just keep multiplying by 1/3 by 1/3 by 1/3, and you'll get the next 3 terms in the sequence. Now we need to find the term named A sub 12, or the 12th term. And in order to do that, we could look at it recursively and continue multiplying by 1/3, but it would be nice if we had a formula that we could just plug into one time and get to the 12th term. Okay, so if I am looking for term 12, I need to know the 0th term. I'll multiply by the ratio 1/3, raise it to the 12th power. Okay. And so what is term 0? Well, if I'm looking for a term that would have come before 1. So if I'm multiplying by 1/3 going forwards, then I'm going to divide by 1/3 going backwards, which is the same as multiplying by 3. And you'll get 3. If you wanted to find that or do that in your calculator, you can just do 1 divided by 1/3, and it would tell you 3. That's what goes there. Okay. And then if I were to put that in my calculator, 3 times 1/3 to the 12th power, it's going to give me this crazy number, and you're like, oh, that's a big number. It's actually a really small number, e-6 times 10 to the -6. That means we're moving this decimal backwards 6 times. So 0.000056 is the actual number. And I'm okay with you for this one just writing 5 times 10 to the -6 as your answer. Another way that we could write it, let's see, I think that would be 1/3 to the 11th power. Three to the 11th. Let's see, that's the same number. It sure is. So what's 3 to the 11th? Okay. Sometimes your calculator doesn't like to put something like this into a fraction. If we tried, to put it into a fraction, it would simply refuse that request. So let's try, what is 3 to the 11th? We know the numerator is 1, so what's the denominator? It's 3 to the 11th. 177,147. Or 1 out of 177,147. Also the answer. And that's number 4.